Hi and welcome to Gaffy's Grinds. If this is your first time watching one of these videos, you're very welcome. And if it's not your first time, you're welcome back. In these short videos on this channel, what we try to do is we try to take topics from our junior cycle science course and try and break them down into small, manageable chunks. Try and give you very straightforward explanations that make it simple for you to understand, and then give you lots of practice to make sure that you remember it, that you're able to retrieve it when you need it. That's the whole idea. So this series in this playlist is about cells and the topic of cells, or the concept of cells. So that's what we're going to be doing in the next few videos. Quick few reminders, as I always give, guys, is that you have to try your best to eliminate any distractions. So if you've got your phone on you and you're not using it to watch this video, you need to turn it off or stick it in another room where it's not going to have a notification that's going to distract you. We don't want that. It's very easy. It happens to us all. If something comes up in our phone, we get distracted, we head off for a look and we forget about this video. The other thing, guys, is I'm going to give you practice stuff and I'm going to give you exercises to do. It's really important you do them, okay? If you don't do them, then you're wasting your time watching these videos. If you do them, I promise you will learn a hell of a lot of stuff. But if you don't, unfortunately, you're not making very good use of your time. So just give it the time while you're actually watching it, okay? And give it your best shot, and then the exercises. All right, so our topic is cells. So we're going to start off. I've got 5 pictures and I just want you to actually just have a look at them by yourself. I'm not going to talk. I just want you to, for about 20 seconds, have a look at the 5 pictures. Okay. Now, what I want you to start thinking about is, how are they connected, or how are they related to each other? Why are these 5 pictures coming up together here? Okay. All right. I want you to stop looking at the pictures and I want you to listen to me, please. All right. So what we are looking at here is we're looking at 5 pictures. We've got a tree, a mushroom, a fish, a robin or a bird, and a human. If it wasn't clear, I hope that has cleared it up now. So what is the connection between them? Well, all of these are what we refer to as living things. Okay, these are all living things. We look at these and we recognize them as being alive. And in science, we study things like this. In a part of science we call biology. We study living things in the science of biology. So all of these are living things. And in science, you know, like everything else, in science we have our own language as such. So we have a word here. We don't refer to these as living things. We talk about them as organisms. Organisms. Now, I just want to underline this part of the word for you. Organ. You've probably heard that before. An organ. An organ is a part inside your body. So like your heart, your brain, your lungs, your kidneys, these are organs. So an organism is a thing that's made up of organs. Okay, so that's where the word comes from. So organisms are living things. We usually write this as the singular version. So I'm going to get rid of the S on organism. And I would write this now: an organism is a living thing. That's what we mean by an organism. It's a living thing. Now, if you're frantically trying to write down everything I do, please stop. Okay, what this channel is about listening carefully to the explanations and doing the things that I ask you to do. Okay, so I will ask you if I need you to do something. You're going to get lots of practice, lots of tasks to do, but don't try and just copy everything down. It's not about copying. We don't learn by copying. We learn by listening and then applying. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing. All right, so an organism is a living thing. So that means a tree is an organism, a mushroom is an organism, the fish here, the salmon is an organism, the bird is an organism, and a human is an organism. What about things which would not be organisms then? Well, they are things which are not going to be alive. So things like concrete, bricks, blocks, gases that we learned about in our particles topic, like carbon dioxide, like oxygen, and liquids like water, like alcohol, like acetone that we use to dissolve nail varnish that we learned about in our previous topic. These things are not alive. So why are they not alive when they are not organisms? Well, the key thing here, we're gonna find out why now in a second. But what I need to do is we are going to make a little chart here. So we are going to make the chart. I'm going to make it, and at different times I'm going to pause. I'm going to ask you to do things. Okay. So let's just clarify. We've got the word organism. Okay. So I'm going to ask you now on 3. What I want you to do is speak to the screen. I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to speak your answer to the screen. Now, hopefully you're in a place where there's no one around and you've got a nice quiet place to actually watch these videos. So you have no problem with just speaking your answer out to the screen. There's no one listening to you. I can't hear you. Hopefully there's no one sitting beside you that you're going to be annoying. So hopefully this is possible for you. If not, then maybe write it down. Pause the video and write it down. Okay. So speak your answer to the screen. What is an organism? On 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm hoping that you said an organism is a living thing. That's what we mean by an organism. Anything which is alive. So an organism is a living thing. Okay. Now, how do we know if something is an organism or not? Or what is an organism? Why is one thing an organism and something else is not an organism? Well, an organism is an organism because it's got to do with what it's made of. Organisms are made of things called living cells. So this word here, cells. So what is a cell? Well, cells are the building blocks of living things. Now, I'm not going to use the word living things anymore because we have a better way of saying that now. We have the building blocks of organisms. So cells, living cells are the building blocks of organisms. Now, why have I said living cells? Well, if I was to take something like the firewood, every summer what I do is I get some trees that are in the fields nearby. The farmer that lives that owns the fields next door often has wood that's fallen down, and he lets me chop it up and I store it for firewood. Now, that firewood is the same wood as this guy, the tree here. But this tree is alive. That means its cells are living. Now, when the tree dies and I chop up the firewood, well, that firewood isn't really alive anymore because the tree is dead. Now, the firewood is still made of the cells. It's still made of cells, but the cells are not alive anymore. So we can't call it an organism anymore. So the firewood that's sitting outside in my shed, stored, waiting to be burned, is made of cells, but they are dead cells. They are not living cells. It's the same with your table at home. You've got a nice coffee table and it's made of wood. Then that wood is also made of cells. Your coffee table is made of cells, but the cells are not alive anymore because the tree that they came from is dead. So that's why we say organisms are made of living cells. Okay, so that's what an organism is. Now, at this stage, what I'm going to do is I want you guys to pause the video in a second when I ask you to. And what I'm going to get you to do is I'm going to get you to get wherever you're going to write down your stuff for this for these videos. You're going to need a copy to do that in. What I want you guys to do is I want you to basically, I've covered up part of what I've just done there. So I hope you guys were listening to me. And what I want you to do now, I'm showing you a bit of it. So an organism is a living thing. I want you to write that down. And then I want you to finish what I've done underneath that. So basically, you're trying to do from memory what I've just drawn there. So an organism is a living thing. What is an organism? What is it made of, basically, is the next bit. What is an organism made of? So I want you to try and do what I've just done. Now, it's a good idea if you do this in pencil, so that if you make a mistake, you can fix it. Because, of course, I'm going to show it to you in a minute. What I don't want you to do, guys, is don't rewind the video and just copy it. Try and do it from memory, because that is going to help you know if you've actually learned what I've said or not. Okay, so I want you to pause the video and do that now. Okay, so you should only be watching the video now if you have paused the video and you have completed the bit of the diagram that I have covered over here. Okay, so I'm hoping that you did that, and this is what you should have. Organism. An organism is a living thing. An organism is made of living cells. Living cells are the building blocks of organisms. If you got all of that right, Excellent, well done. If you didn't, then there'll be other chances to learn, but maybe it's telling you need to listen a bit closer to in the future. Okay. Now, there is another bit to add to this, and that is that when we talk about cells, we talk about, I want black. When we talk about cells, we talk about two main types. So again, please do not write what I'm writing. You're listening now. So pens down, listening to what I'm writing. Okay. I will give you a chance to try and do this in a second, but listening for now. So living cells, we're talking about two types. So we've got two types. Okay. We've got plant. So we call them plant cells. And we've got animal. So plant cells and animal cells. So these are two different types, two ways of classifying different types of cells. And in a bit, we're going to learn how to draw these. For now, what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video and I want you to complete the diagram underneath what we've just done. So do that now, pause the video. Okay, so now you should only be watching if you have completed the diagram or you've tried your best to complete the diagram. This is what you should have. Check it, make sure it's the same as this. If you forgot anything, add it in now. If you need to change that and rub it out, change it, pause the video and do that now. Okay, so quick recap. Organisms are living things and they're made of cells. Cells are the building blocks of organisms. And there are two main types of cells, plant cells and animal cells. All right, so it's going pretty good so far. At this stage, what we're going to do is we are going to learn how to draw. We're going to learn how to draw plant cells and animal cells. That's what we're going to do now. Okay, so we're going to learn how to draw them. So again, what I want you to do is while I'm drawing, I want you to just listen. And at different stages, I'm going to stop and I'm going to get you to draw what I've done. Okay. Right, so the first thing, one of the main skills we need to be able to do is we need to be able to tell the difference between a plant cell and an animal cell. We need to be able to recognize the different types of cells. So I'm going to draw the outline of two cells here. I'm going to draw one. And what I'm doing here is I'm drawing a cell which is it's roundish in shape, but it's not perfect circle. It's not a regular shape. It's an irregular shape. So it's an irregular shape. So a regular shape is one that has very predictable, perfect, either it's a perfect circle or it's a perfect square, or it's a perfect rectangle, or it's quite close to being perfect. This one is not. This one is wavy and it doesn't have any particular, it's circle-like, but it's not a proper shape. Okay, so it's what we call an irregular shape. So that's one thing that we're noticing straight away is that cells have an irregular shape. The other type of cell, and you'll notice what I'm doing here is I'm leaving a gap in between them. And I'm drawing the other cell over here. And this cell is much more regular. Now, it's not a perfect rectangle, but it's much more regular. It's much more rectangular than the other cell, regular shape. Okay. So that is the first thing to know, is that one has a regular shape and one has an irregular shape. That's the first clue as to what type of cell we're talking about. Well, the regular shaped one, the more rectangular shape, this is our plant cell. So that's one clue as to if it's a plant cell, if it's got a regular shape. The irregular shaped one is an animal cell. Okay. All right, guys. What I want you to do is I want you to pause the video and I want you to try and draw what I've drawn so far. Okay, so you should only be watching the video if you pause the video and try to draw what we've drawn so far. And this is what you should have. Well done, if that's what you have. Excellent. Right, at this stage, we're going to draw our first part. So we have parts, we have our cell, and we have our parts inside the cell. Okay, so these are pieces or parts inside the cell, basically. Now, we often refer to these as structures inside the cell. Okay, so the first structure inside the cell that we're going to look at, I am drawing here, I'm drawing a circle. And inside the circle, I am writing DNA. DNA. Now, if we were to look at this, it wouldn't really have DNA written on it, but it's got to do with the DNA is actually inside it. So I'm just helping label what's inside it. So we say that the DNA is there because DNA is stored inside this part. Now, the interesting thing is we also find this part in a plant cell. So this part is present in both plant and animal cell, DNA, and it has the same name in both of the cells. So that's nice because it helps us. It's easier to remember. There's only one name. Now, what this is called, this part is called a nucleus. Nucleus is a word that means center. And it gets that name because when they first found it, it appeared to be the main part of the cell. It was the first thing that scientists could actually see when they found the cell. So it seemed like it was the center of the cell was made up by the nucleus. So the nucleus. So the nucleus is its name. And then each of these structures has a job to do, or what we call a function. So in science, anytime something is doing a job, we say it has a function. So the nucleus's function is to control cell activities. Control cell activities. Now, what do we mean by this? We mean basically its behavior and the stuff it makes for your body. Okay. So control the cell activities, and it does this because it stores DNA. So that's what it's doing, is stores DNA, and DNA is basically a set of instructions that for your cells, a set of instructions that tell your cells how to behave and what processes they should be doing, things like that. So that is the DNA, and because the nucleus stores the DNA, the nucleus controls cell activities. So at this point, what I want you to do, I'm going to hide it, and I want you to pause the video, and I want you using a pencil to draw those structures, label it, and write down the functions. Okay, so try that now, please. Okay, this is what you should have, guys. So you should have drawn the nucleus as a circle-shaped object. It's present in both of these cells. It's got DNA inside it, so it stores DNA, and it controls cell activities. So that's what we're talking about. So the nucleus controls cell activities and stores DNA. Right, on to the second part that we're going to draw. I am drawing the second structure, and these are small structures which I'm just going to draw as dots because they are quite small compared to the other parts, and they are present in both cells. Okay, so again, we're going to label these, and again, you should only be listening to me at the moment. These structures are what we call ribosomes. Ribosomes. Okay, and the ribosomes, their job or their function, as we say in science, is to produce or make proteins. So your body is largely made up of proteins. All the different parts, structures of your body is made of protein. A lot of the reasons why we are the way we are is because of the proteins that are produced. Cells are areas in your body that produce a lot of protein, will have a lot of ribosomes in the cells. And basically your unique features, the shape of your face, the color of your eyes, the color of your hair, depends on the proteins that get produced. So these guys are rather important, and they work together with the nucleus, which you would learn about more in the future. But ribosomes produce proteins. That's their job. So again, let's pause the video and add that to your diagram. Okay, so you should only be watching if you had added that part to your diagram. What was that part called? That part was called the ribosomes, and they produce proteins. That's their job. So if you didn't get that, you need to add it in. I'm hoping that you are able to get this. We're doing a small chunk at a time. I'm hoping that you're able to get it. Okay, so you should be able to get it if you're listening properly. If not, you need to listen more carefully. Right, I'm going to add another structure now. I am drawing these oval shaped structures, and they've got like a squiggly line inside them like that. Okay, so we've got these ovals with squiggly lines, and they are present in both plant and animal cells. And these structures have the name, not ribosomes, we've done them already. These are called mitochondria. Mitochondria. Maybe you should all practice saying that word. That's a tough one. So speak the word to the screen on 3. 1, 2, 3. Mitochondria. Go. Mitochondria. Okay, so this is the mitochondria. It's an oval-shaped structure, and its job is to release energy for the cell. So releases energy. Now, everything that happens in the cell requires energy. All the stuff that's going to be going on here that we're going to be learning about in the future, the cells aren't these like, I'm drawing them here as a picture where nothing is moving, but really there's loads of stuff going on in the cells. If I get a chance here later on, I might put up our latest diagram of what a cell really looks like. We're doing diagrams here, which are just models of what the cell looks like. It's really much more complicated than this. I'm just giving you a quick overview, a quick, simple model to help you guys understand it. So it releases energy because it's the site of a chemical reaction that happens in every cell called respiration. Respiration. Respiration is a chemical reaction that happens in every cell. We will learn much more about this in the future, but for now, it's a chemical reaction that releases energy in the cell, and it happens in the mitochondria. The next part I am labeling, sorry, you guys practice drawing that now, please. Go ahead. Pause the video. Yeah, okay, so you should be watching now if you have added the mitochondria. So check that you've got it, check that you spelled it right, and check that you've written down the functions correctly. Okay, the next part I am going to label is the outside edge of what I've drawn here. So this edge here and this edge here. This part is called the cell membrane. The cell membrane. It's basically a very thin layer which is able to control what materials can pass in and out of the cell. It's kind of like when we learn about the filter paper having small little holes in it, which lets some materials through, some small materials through, but not bigger materials through. The cell membrane is kind of like that. It's got gaps in it that let materials pass through. Some materials can go in, some materials cannot go in. So the cell membrane, its job is to control what enters / exits the cell. That's the job of the cell membrane. So the cell membrane, the outside layer, the outside line of what we've drawn so far, and it controls what exits and enters and exits the cell. So what I want you to do is I want you to add that to your diagram, please. So you should have your video paused. Okay, so you should only be watching now if you've added that to the screen. This is what you should have. You've got cell membrane, controls what enters and exits the cell. That's the job of it. Right, the next part I am going to label, again, is present in both cells, is what looks like just the space inside the cell. It's like background. It's got the white background or whatever you're drawing on. It just looks like the space inside the cell. Now, it's not really space. It's really a liquid. So it's a liquid. It's like a jelly-like liquid. It's not really flow. It doesn't flow very well. It's more jelly. It's more solid, but it's still liquidy. Okay, so it's like a jelly, if you can imagine that, inside the cell. And this material is called the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm. That's the liquid inside the cell. And what happens here, its function is it allows, so it's where chemical reactions sorry, I'm gonna fix a few mistakes I've made there. Chemical reactions take place. So it's a liquid that chemical reactions can take place in. Loads of chemical reactions have to be happening in your cells at any time to keep us alive, to keep us functioning. So the cytoplasm allows chemical reactions to take place. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to add cytoplasm now to your diagram. So pause your video now. Okay, so that's what you should have. Well done. If you've managed to successfully add all of those parts up to now, that's great. What we're now going to do is we're going to, okay, hopefully now you realize that all of these parts, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts there that are shared between the plant and the animal cell. These are present in both plant and animal cells. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to talk about a few parts which are only present in the plant cell. So the plant cell has a few extra bits that we need to talk about. So as well as down here, like we highlighted before, the plant cell has a regular shape. That's one way in which you can help identify if it's a plant cell or an animal cell. You will also be able to see if it's a plant cell, if it's got any of these following parts that we're going to talk about, because only the plant cell has these. Okay, so the first part that we're going to add is I am going to add an extra layer to the plant cell. So the plant cell has an extra layer around the outside. So as you can see, what I'm doing now is I'm drawing another layer around the outside of the cell like this. Okay. Now, I don't want that to be done yet. Okay, so like that. And this here, this part is called the cell wall. The cell wall. And the cell wall, its job is to strengthen and protect the plant cell. That's its job or its function. It strengthens and protects. Now, the reason why why the plant cell needs this, the strengthen and protection, and it gives the cell its shape, because humans and animals, most animals, we have these cells that have no cell wall, but we have a skeleton, which helps keep us, gives us our shape, gives us our structure, strengthens us, helps us stand up straight. Plant cells, you know, some trees can be extremely, extremely tall, and they don't have a skeleton inside them holding them up. Now, the cell wall is one of the reasons why they can be so strong, even though they don't have a skeleton. So it would take a hell of a lot of effort to keep a big, tall tree standing up straight. So it's a lot of strength required for that. And the cell wall is one of the reasons why this is possible. There are other reasons, more complicated than that, but it's just one of the reasons. So the cell wall strengthens and protects the cell. So if you see a cell wall, that means we're not talking about an animal cell, because animal cells do not have a cell wall. Okay, it means we're talking about a plant cell. Second part I'm going to draw is I'm going to draw a large sac-like structure inside. Now, I need to change this arrow, sorry, because that's pointing now. Yeah, just there. Okay, I'm drawing this large sac-like structure in here. And you see again, it's only present in the plant cell. And we call this the vacuole. Vacuole. This is the vacuole. It's a sac-like structure. And what it does is it stores, its function is to store sap. And sap is like sugary, it's a mixture of sugar and water, basically. So when the plant makes sugars, it's able to store them as sap in the vacuole. Okay, so it stores sap. That's the vacuole. The last part I'm going to draw are these circle-like structures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't really matter how many you draw. And I'm going to color them in green, because these things really are green in color, and it's got to do with a chemical that they store inside them. And this is what gives plants their green color, is that the cells have these things inside them. These are called chloroplasts. Now that's another hard one. So what I want you to do on 3 is I want to speak that to the screen. Chloroplast. 1, 2, 3. Chloroplasts. Okay. And what these do is their function is they're the site. So they're the space or the area where site of photosynthesis. Now, where does this word come from? We're going to see this word again in the future, but at the moment, we're going to break it down. Synthesis means to make. Synthesis means to make. and photo means light. Now, it's not to make light. Plants don't make light, but they make something using light. So photosynthesis, to make using light, that's what it means. What do they make using light? They make food. So the plant is able to use the sun's energy, or the light from the sun, to make food for itself. And it can then store that food, or the sugars that it makes mixed with water, as sap in the vacuole. So the chloroplasts are the site of photosynthesis. Okay, that is the job of the chloroplasts. So what I'm going to get you guys to do now is I'm going to get you, sorry, I'm going to ignore this photo that I don't want you to see yet. I'm just going to move that down. Come on. Come on, move for me. Okay. What I want you to do is ignore that photo, and I want you to add in those 3 parts. Now I'm asking you to do a little bit more here. I'm asking you to add in 3 parts. Okay, so pause the video and add in the 3 parts of the plant cell. Do that now. Okay, if you were able to do that, brilliant. If you weren't able to do that, here's a clue that might help you. Pause the video again and finish it off. The 3 parts, the names are the cell wall. Have you drawn the cell wall? Check. Yeah, hopefully you have. If you haven't, pause and do it now, the cell wall. The second part is the vacuole. Have you drawn the vacuole? Hopefully you have. If you haven't, pause and do it now. The third part is the chloroplasts. Have you drawn the chloroplasts? If you haven't, pause the video and do it now. Okay, so hopefully you've drawn this, the cell wall, and its job is to strengthen and protect. The vacuole, and its function is to store sap. And the chloroplasts, and its function is it's the site of photosynthesis. Now, if you see any of these parts, that means that we're looking at a plant cell. So that's how you would help to identify if it's a plant cell. If you see any of these parts, and especially if you see lots of them, if you see more than one, but if you see any of them, it's a good sign it's a plant cell. If you see that it's a regular shape, it's a good sign that it's a plant cell. Okay, so sometimes we're looking at plant and animal cells, and we're trying to identify which is which, and we're looking for clues. These are the clues that you'll be looking for. Okay, it's practice time to do some practice questions now. So in your practice copy, what we're going to do is you're going to produce this table for me. Okay. So we're going to pause the video and we're going to finish off that table. You see, the first one is done for you. So you don't have to do a perfectly outlined table, but we've got, oh, there's one more thing actually I need to tell you about before we do that. And that is each of these structures. So structures, by structures, I mean these guys that we just did. So I mean nucleus, ribosomes, mitochondria, cell membrane, cytoplasm, cell wall, vacuole, and chloroplasts. By those structures, that's what I mean when I say structures, we have a general name for those guys, and that is this word, organelle, an organelle. So it's kind of like organ, it's like little organ. So an organelle is a structure inside the cell. Structure inside a cell. That's what we mean by the word organelle. Structure inside a cell. We call these organelles. So that means the nucleus is an organelle. The ribosomes are organelle. The mitochondria is an organelle. The vacuole is an organelle. The cell wall is an organelle, and so on. All of those things are organelles. The cell is not an organelle. Cell is not an example of an organelle because it's a full cell. The organelles are just the pieces inside the cell, okay, or the structures inside the cell. Right, so up here then, we had this table again. Sorry, we're back to this now. And this is organelle, okay? So we've got the word organelle. Here are the organelles: nucleus, cell membrane, cell wall, permanent vacuole, ribosomes, chloroplast, mitochondria, and cytoplasm. And you have to tick if they are present in a plant cell or an animal cell. So nucleus, as you can see, is ticked. It is found in an animal cell and it is found in a plant cell. So that's how we're going to do it. So you're going to put a tick. If there's not a tick, you're going to put an X like that. Okay, so tick if it's there, X if it's not there. So what I want you to do now is I want you to pause the video and I want you to finish out that table for me. Okay, so you should only be watching the video if you have done that now. Okay, so if you have completed this table and you have ticked or X'd it basically. Okay, so this is what you should have. Cell membrane is found in animal cells. Yes, it is. And it's found in plant cells. Yes, it is. Okay, a cell wall, is it found in animal cells? No, it's not. Here's our first X. It is found in plant cells. A permanent vacuole, is it found in animal cells? No, it's not. Is it found in plant cells? Yes, it is. Well done if you got that right. Ribosomes, it is found in animal cells and it is found in plant cells. Chloroplasts, it is not found in animal cells and it is found in chloroplasts. Mitochondria, it is found in animal cells and it is found in plant cells. And the cytoplasm is found in animal cells and is found in plant cells. Well done if you got that right. Okay. I just want to draw your attention to the fact now that these are little models of what cells are like. They're not the complete understanding that we have. This is first year science. Okay, so we're just giving you a model of the basic things inside the cell. They are much more complicated than this, and they are much more complicated than scientists even understand. So we just want to give you an appreciation of how complicated these things really are. This is the most modern picture of a cell that we have, taken with our most complicated microscopes that we have right now. Okay, I want to point out some of the structures that we've seen. Okay, so here in green, this here that I'm highlighting is the cell membrane. Okay. These are the gaps in the cell membrane that let some things through and not other things through. This here, this is a mitochondria. I'm coloring in yellow, highlighting in yellow over here. This is a mitochondria. Complicated things, but as you can see, like I said, it's an oval shape with a squiggly line. You can see the squiggly lines there. It's more complicated than a squiggly line, but a squiggly line will do for us for right now. Anything else there that we recognize? To be honest with you, I'm not sure I recognize too much of the rest of it because it's, as you can see, it's very complicated, but it will be in there somewhere. So I'm not going to try and guess what they are because I don't want to mislead you. The nucleus is in there somewhere, but we're only seeing a little bit of the cell here. So the nucleus might be somewhere in there that you can't actually see. So I'm not going to try and guess and mislead you. I can just pick out those two bits. Very complicated, much more complicated than our simple diagram, but our simple diagram is good for now because it's got the main parts that we're concerned about. And it helps us understand how the cell works. A couple more questions to do now, guys. Okay. What I want you to do is I want you to pause the video and again, from memory, without looking back on your notes, that's really important that you try these from memory. I want to pause the video and try to do the questions, please. Okay. Okay, you should be watching the video if you have paused and tried to do the questions. Question A just asked you to make a list of all the structures found in a human cell. Well, a human cell, what type of cell is it, first of all? Okay, hoping that you realize a human cell is an animal cell. If you didn't, pause the video and write down now the parts found in a human cell. Okay, so the parts found in a human cell are the parts found in an animal cell are the nucleus. You should have nucleus. You should have cell membrane. You should have mitochondria, you should have ribosomes, and you should have cytoplasm. So if you have those parts, well done. If you don't, you need to write them down now. So question 1A, you need to always correct your work, guys. Always write down your corrections. Otherwise, we don't learn from our mistakes. So let's go through them again. Nucleus, mitochondria, cell membrane, cytoplasm, and ribosomes. I will put the answers up on the screen at the end if you need to see them written down. What is the function of the nucleus and the mitochondria? The nucleus controls the cell activities by storing DNA. That's what it does. Controls the cell activities, it stores DNA. Well done if you got that right. The mitochondria, its function is it releases energy for the cell. Check your answer. Tick it if it's right, fix it if it's wrong. The Krebs cycle. Oh, this is weird. We never learned anything about the Krebs cycle. Right, it's really important when you see something like this that you don't just give up. I've never heard of the Krebs cycle. He must have forgot to teach us that. Well, I didn't, okay? I gave you the information you need to answer the question. The Krebs cycle is an important part of respiration. Okay, I didn't tell you about the Krebs cycle, but I did tell you about respiration, and that's what you need to know. Krebs cycle is part of respiration. Fine, we're talking about respiration. Where then does the Krebs cycle take place? What this question is really asking you, if you didn't already cop onto this, is that where does respiration take place? If the Krebs cycle is part of respiration, where does it take place? So if you didn't figure that out, the link there, pause the video and write down the answer now. I'm hoping that you said Krebs cycle takes place in the mitochondria, because that's where respiration takes place. Well done if you got that right. It was challenging. D, what are 3 structures found only in plant cells and not in animal cells? Okay, those 3 would be the cell wall, the chloroplasts, and the vacuole. So check your answer. That's what you should have. If not, write them down. What cell structure is responsible for making proteins? So which cell structure has the function that it makes proteins? That would be the ribosomes. Well done if you said that, ribosome. F, salivary cells, these are cells in your mouth that produce saliva, produce amylase, which is a type of protein. Oh, key thing here. Okay, salivary cells, they make protein. What type of cell structure will they have to have a lot of? Well, it's in a roundabout way there, it's asking you what type of cell structure makes proteins, because if we're going to need to make a lot of protein, we're going to need to have a lot of the thing that makes protein. So what part of the cell makes protein? Well done if you got this already. If not, there's a little hint for you. Write down the answer. Okay, so the answer here is, of course, the ribosomes, because the ribosomes make protein. Now, the last question there, question 2, says, look, use cover, write, and check to start learning the names of organelle and their functions. So this is basically where you cover over what you've drawn with either your hand or another page or your pencil case. And you basically, so you study it, you cover it over, and you try and either redraw it out or you write down the names and the functions. Okay. Here is the answers to those questions if you need to see them written down so you can get any of the answers and fix anything you got wrong. You can pause the video and do that now. For question 2, where you had to use the look, cover, and check, you should be able to produce something like this. Okay, so where you basically have the questions, what is the function of the nucleus, what is the function of the cell membrane, and you should be able to write down the answers. So without looking, you guys should be able to actually write down the answers to these questions. So if you want to use this, you can take this down and you can use this to self-quiz. How would you do that? You would cover over the answers and you would either practice reading them out and then check and see if you can say them properly, or even better, it's better if you actually then cover the answers and try and write the answers then on top of the page. So we keep the questions on show, cover over with a page that just the answer bit, the right-hand side of the table, and on top of the page, you can write the answers down, and then you move the page and check to have it right. It's really important that you actually check the answers then to see if they're right at the end. Okay, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next video.